You scroll through your feed without thinking. Faces blur past, smiles, poses, vacations, filtered moments of confidence and joy. Everyone seems present. Everyone seems visible. And then there are people who aren't there at all. No selfies, no profile pictures that change, no face attached to their name, just a blank space where a photo should be. And for some reason, that absence feels louder than all the images combined. It makes you wonder, what are they hiding? Are they insecure?
Are they lonely? Or are they the only ones who truly understand what social media is doing to us?
We live in a world where visibility has become currency, where being seen is mistaken for being valued, where silence feels suspicious and privacy feels almost rebellious. Posting photos isn't just a habit anymore, it's a ritual, a signal that says, I exist, I belong, I am part of this moment. So when someone refuses to participate, when they choose not to share their face with the digital crowd, it unsettles us, because it challenges an unspoken rule we've all quietly accepted.
But here's the uncomfortable truth most people never consider. Not posting photos online is rarely about fear. It's rarely about low self-esteem, and it's almost never about not wanting attention. In fact, many of the people who avoid sharing their images understand attention better than anyone else. They know how easily it distorts identity, how quickly a person becomes a performance. How subtle the pressure is to turn moments into content, emotions into aesthetics, and life into something that can be approved or rejected with a tap of a finger.
Some people look at a camera and don't see connection. They see judgment. Not always from others, but from the version of themselves that social media quietly creates. A version that must be consistent, attractive, relatable, successful, happy. Once you post your face, you don't just share an image, you create an expectation. And maintaining that expectation can become exhausting.
There are people who have learned, often through experience, that the more you explain yourself to the world, the more the world feels entitled to define you. They understand that once an image is out there, it no longer belongs to them. It becomes commentary, comparison, assumption. And for some minds, especially reflective, introspective ones, that loss of control feels far more uncomfortable than staying unseen.
Others have noticed something even deeper, that the more people post, the less present they become. That moments start to feel incomplete unless they're documented. That joy begins to require witnesses. And they quietly choose a different path. One where experiences are lived fully, not captured. Where memories are internal, not archived. Where validation comes from within, not from numbers on a screen.
There are also those who have been misunderstood too many times. People whose expressions were read the wrong way, whose images attracted attention they never asked for, who learned that visibility doesn't always bring connection, but sometimes invites projection. Strangers filling in the blanks of who you are based on a single frozen frame. And eventually, those people stop offering material for interpretation.
What looks like absence from the outside is often presence on the inside, a strong internal identity that doesn't need reinforcement, a sense of self that isn't built on reflection but on understanding. These individuals don't avoid photos because they dislike themselves. They avoid photos because they know who they are without them.
And then there's the quiet realization that social media has trained us to confuse intimacy with exposure, to believe that if something isn't shared, it didn't happen. People who refuse to post their photos often reject this idea entirely. They draw a line between what is lived and what is shown,
between who they are and what they allow the world to see.
This choice isn't loud. It doesn't denounce itself. It simply exists. And because it exists, it stands in contrast to everything else around it. It makes us uncomfortable because it reminds us that participation is optional, that we don't owe the world constant access to our faces, our lives, our identities.
As this video unfolds, you'll begin to see that the refusal to share photos is not a weakness, but a psychological position, a boundary, a form of self-protection, and sometimes a quiet kind of power. And now, as the video comes to an end, there's something important to sit with. In a world that rewards exposure, choosing privacy is not accidental, it's intentional. People who don't post their photos online have made a decision, whether consciously or instinctively, to separate who they are from how they are perceived. They've stepped away from the endless mirror of comparison that social media holds up to us every day.
They understand something most people only realize after burnout, after anxiety, after chasing validation that never quite satisfies. That being seen doesn't always mean being known, that likes don't equal connection, that attention doesn't equal acceptance, and that sometimes the most grounded people are the least visible.
These individuals often observe more than they participate. They listen more than they perform. They value depth over reach. And while others are busy curating an image, they are busy living a life that doesn't need to be explained.
It's easy to assume silence means insecurity, but more often it means selectiveness. It means not everyone deserves access, not every moment deserves an audience, and not every part of the self needs to be displayed to be real.
Social media has convinced us that if we don't show ourselves, we're missing out. But people who don't post their photos often feel the opposite. They feel free, free from comparison, free from the pressure to look a certain way, free from turning their identity into something measurable.
They don't disappear. They simply exist on their own terms. Their confidence is quiet. Their boundaries are firm. And their sense of self isn't shaped by algorithms or trends, but by lived experience.
So the next time you come across a profile without a face, resist the urge to judge. That absence might represent clarity, self-awareness, or a refusal to trade authenticity for approval. In a world that constantly demands visibility, choosing not to be seen can be one of the most psychologically grounded decisions a person can make. And perhaps the real question isn't why some people refuse to share their photos online. Perhaps the real question is why we feel so uneasy when they don't.